Hey everybody, Dr. G here. I'm a clinical and forensic psychologist as well as a body language expert, and today we're going to be analyzing more behavior and body language from Wendi Adelson. We're also going to be looking at some statements from her brother Robert Adelson, as well as a reaction from their mother, Donna Adelson. Before we get started with this, a couple of quick things. One, I wanted to make sure you know this is not a psychological evaluation of any kind. These are just my opinions. In addition to that, I do want to remind you to like and subscribe if you want to see more content just like this. All right, let's go. If you're watching this video, you probably have some familiarity with the background of this case, but here is the 10-second version. Wendi Adelson's ex-husband, Dan Markel, was murdered. Charlie Adelson, her brother, hired somebody to commit the murder. The current trial is of Donna Adelson, the mother of both Wendi Adelson and Charlie Adelson, and whether or not she was in fact involved in this murder-for-hire plot. All right, let's just jump right in.
Why did you tell investigator Isom in your law enforcement interview that you were worried the police, or you were worried, I guess, in the police car on the way to be interviewed, that you might be considered a suspect?
Because I couldn't think of anything bad going on in his life other than the divorce. And frequently the ex-wife is a suspect.
Were you treated as a suspect?
I was not.
Now, if you've watched my previous coverage of the prior trials, because this is the third one of this case, you'll know that I did an analysis, a very thorough analysis of Wendi Adelson during her police interview. So when I was watching this part, I caught some things that immediately stood out to me. And I want to cover this, and then we're going to go through and do more of the body language. But I think this is so important, I want to make sure you get this.
But you mentioned 9 times in your law enforcement interview being a suspect, didn't you?
I did, yes.
When you were approached at the restaurant, you weren't yet told that this was a shooting, were you?
I was not.
You were only told something happened with your ex-husband.
I don't even know if I was told that. I was very scared something happened to my kids, and that's why law enforcement was there, and they wouldn't tell me what was going on.
But they did reassure you that the kids were fine. You remember
They told me that law enforcement officers were with the children, which terrified me because I didn't know why my children would need law enforcement officers.
So you didn't know what this was about at all when you were in the police car?
In the car, they told me.
Okay, in the car they told you what?
They said, your ex-husband has been shot.
Okay.
Okay, now I know I didn't go over the body language yet. We're going to do that later. Let's see what her actual interrogation shows. What she just said was that during the car ride, when she was in the car with the police, that is when she was told that her ex-husband, Dan Markel, had been shot. Now, this is the very beginning of the police interview. She just listened to a voice message on her phone. The officer is coming in right now.
I just listened to my voicemail.
What'd you hear?
Who
was your voicemail?
It's from Lisa Carey, who is my real estate agent, or who I had gone with to find a house. She just said she was driving around town, and she heard there was a shooting on Trescott.
Yeah.
So Wendi just said that her friend left her a message that she heard there was a shooting on Trescott. Now, did she phrase that in a way that sounds like somebody who had been told in the car ride over that her ex-husband had been shot? It doesn't sound like it to me. Let's keep going.
That's what this is about. I'm sorry you had to hear it that way.
I'm sorry, I didn't know if I...
I'm sorry you had to hear it that way. Now, does that sound like someone who has already told her that her ex-husband was shot? It certainly doesn't sound like it. From what he is saying, she is finding out new information. Let's listen to that part again.
A house. She just said she was driving around town, and she heard there was a shooting on Trescott.
Yeah. That's what this is about. I'm sorry you had to hear it that way.
I'm sorry, I didn't know if I should...
It's all right. Just leave it there. Is it still on?
We're skipping ahead just a little bit so you can see her reaction when she's told that Dan Markel was shot.
There was a shooting at your home, or your ex-husband's home, at 2116 Trescott. Okay. Your ex-husband, Daniel, all right, has been taken to the hospital. He's not going to survive.
Oh my God.
Okay.
Now, does this seem like someone who had already been provided this information? Is her reaction one of somebody who just heard about this for the first time, or supposedly just heard about this for the first time? Or is this someone who was told about this in their car ride on the way over there? The reason that matters is because of this next part. Now we're jumping about 30 minutes ahead. Just listen to this part.
And I have no reason at this point to suspect you in this incident, okay?
I couldn't tell from the way you were talking to me in the car if I was a suspect.
Well, no, and the reason was I didn't want to get into everything until we got up.
Now we've got more clarity than last time I did this video, because what I had said was that this statement right here showed that when she was in the car, she was thinking about whether or not she was a suspect, even though she had not been told that Dan Markel had been shot yet. I definitely had comments of people saying, well, maybe she assumed that something bad had happened, and therefore she was worried she was a suspect of something. I never thought that made much sense. But now we have absolute confirmation that while she was actually on the stand testifying in Donna Adelson's trial, that she lied. She said that she was told for the first time while she was in the car. So it begs the question, why would she lie about this? What purpose does it serve to lie about this fact? Because verifiably, based on this and based on what she said, both cannot be true. She cannot have been told for the first time in the car and then also been told the first time during this police interview. All right, let's move on to some of the body language, but I just thought it was important that we cover this part because I think this is essential to understanding the rest of her testimony. Now let's get into the body language analysis. Now, if you have watched the previous trials, if you watched Charlie Adelson's trial, many of these responses are going to sound familiar because we're going to be covering the segment where she talks about whether or not the repairman came and so on and so forth. So if you've seen her previously, this is going to sound familiar.
Yeah, I think that was kind of his lifestyle.
Did he like nice things?
He
Fancy
did.
Cars?
He liked nice cars. He liked nice food.
Now, one thing I want you to pay attention to when you watch Wendy speak is her eyes. Blinking tends to denote stress. When we close our eyes, it tends to imply that we don't want to look at the person we're speaking to, sometimes because of deception. So the eyes are going to be key when we watch this, the way that she blinks and so forth. So just keep track of that as you watch her with her responses.
Okay. Did you, during the phone conversations you had with your brother during that time, did you talk much about your marital problems?
I mean, to be
Now, that was interesting. Now, all emotions are on both sides of the face except contempt. That's one side of the face. Watch this right here. It looks like we get a little bit of contempt.
During that time, did you talk much about your marital problems?
That right there is what we typically associate with contempt.
With your brother during that time, did you talk much about your marital problems?
I mean, to be honest, I don't remember, but I'm sure we talked about it.
Is it fair to say during the year or so leading up to Mr. Markel's murder that your brother did not like him?
I think that's fair to say.
Did your brother joke about hiring a...
So you saw her brush her hair behind her ear. We tend to do that as a way to relieve stress. There's lots of nerve endings on the head, so when we do things with our hair, it helps us feel calmer. So you're going to see her continually do that. That is also an indicator that we're getting onto something that's stressing her out.
him?
I think that's fair to say.
Did your brother joke about hiring a hitman to kill Dan Markel?
He did make that joke.
So when she replies to this, she has her eyes closed. We typically do that because we don't want to see the other person we're replying to. Sometimes it's when we're being deceptive, but it definitely suggests some degree of discomfort.
Brother joke about hiring a hitman to kill Dan Markel?
He did make that joke.
What was the joke specifically?
My brother had bought me a TV as a divorce present, and he would make the joke that the TV was cheaper than hiring a hitman.
Did you ever tell Jeffrey Lacasse about that joke?
I may have mentioned that joke to Jeff Lacasse.
Who is that?
Jeff Lacasse was someone that I dated after Danny and
Now, if you saw her previous testimony, this is almost beat for beat exactly the same. These days, it's nearly impossible to separate fact from fiction. The media isn't in the business of telling you the truth. It's in the business of shaping your perception about it. Every outlet, whether it leans left, leans right, or is in the middle, runs the same playbook. Keep you outraged, keep you distracted, and keep you hooked on carefully engineered narratives. What they're serving isn't journalism, it's psychological warfare. They thrive on division, they magnify falsehoods, and they quietly bury stories that loosen their grip on power. That's why ground news exists. It's more than just another news app and website, it's a weapon against manipulation. Ground News takes reporting from thousands of sources, mainstream, independent, billionaire-backed, government-controlled, and lays it bare so you can see the bias, the ownership, and the agenda behind every headline. And here's the real kicker. It shows you what's missing. The stories left on the cutting room floor. The details that were deliberately kept out. The silence that speaks louder than words on the page. When you watch these fractures appear in real time, you start spotting manipulation like it's glowing under a spotlight, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. Ground News isn't confusing or complicated. It's simple, it's intuitive, and it hands the power back to you. That's why they're giving you 40% off the Vantage plan we use. Just $5 a month for unlimited access. Go to ground.news/Dr. G to claim it by clicking the link in the description or scanning this QR code. Stop letting billionaires and corporations write your reality. Start seeing the world for what it really is with Ground News. All right, let's get back to the analysis. Now, you may have noticed that she keeps her lips parted when she isn't speaking. So when George is speaking, when she's asking questions, her lips tend to stay a little bit open. And I think the reason for this is that she's able to take slow, controlled breaths to help her maintain feeling calm by doing that. So I think the reason that she keeps her lips parted is probably to regulate her breathing in a way to make her maintain a sense of calmness or make her maintain appearing calm.
That you had was not covered by the warranty, was it?
I don't think so.
Okay, and do you recall how long the TV repairman was at your house?
I don't. It was a reasonable amount of time, so maybe an hour or so.
And why did it take an hour to determine that the TV couldn't be repaired or was not under warranty?
I don't know. I don't know a lot about AV equipment.
So when there's something you really want people to believe and you're feeling very strongly about it, sometimes we laugh or we smile to try to make sure that people believe what we're saying.
You vomited at the table.
It was several weeks until I felt ready to leave my apartment. I was very, very scared.
So that happen?
It did happen.
Now you'll notice what she did there. She was asked a question rather than reply to it. There is a narrative she wants to make sure that, I suppose she wants to make sure the jury hears, which is, I was very scared at this time. I was afraid, so I didn't leave my apartment. So she makes sure to include these, even though that's superfluous information that she was not asked about.
That trip, were there any conversations with Catherine Magbanoa or your brother or your mother about the murder?
No.
Now, whenever she does these long, slow blinks, that's the areas that I would want to press more. Those are the things that make me concerned that there could be deception.
Do you remember the time frame that the repairman was at your house on the morning of the murder?
I remember more or less. I feel like he came, he was supposed to come sometime between 8 and 12, and he came on the early side. Because I just remember being surprised and trying to get dressed really fast.
Okay, and Dan Markel was killed between 8 and 12, right?
He was.
That now.
So whenever she's asked questions that are highly consequential, you get that long pause and then fast blinking afterwards. Watch this.
Dan Markel was killed between 8 and 12, right?
He was.
That now. And on your way to meet the friends, did you have an occasion to go down Trescott?
I was trying to turn down Trescott. That's where I used to turn and take just the road I was used to. But there was yellow tape up. And so when I tried to...
Now you'll notice she appears more anxious right now. You see more stiffness in her face. You hear more pressure in her voice. This is the third time we've seen her talk about this if you've watched the previous trials. The first answer during the first trial was totally different than this. The story changes a little bit each time, but this is a very consequential part of the testimony. So I think the pressure is really on right here to respond in a way that she is controlled and saying exactly what she wants to say.
But there was yellow tape up. And so when I tried to turn, I couldn't turn. So I made a 3-point turn and kept going on Centerville.
And so you encountered a police roadblock at that location?
Yes.
Okay, couldn't go any further because there was a police car and some yellow tape, right?
Right.
And you were able to see that from the intersection there, or you actually turned onto Trescott?
I tried to turn, and then I couldn't go through, so I turned around and kept going.
So the phrase "tried to turn," she makes it sound like that there was tape across the front of the neighborhood, like you couldn't have turned in at all. But my understanding is you had to drive down a decent bit to even get to the tape. So saying, I tried to turn down Trescott sounds very, very different than what the reality is from what I can tell.
How far down Trescott did you proceed before you turned around?
Just until the tape.
Had you talked to Dan Markel or your children that morning before you encountered the roadblock?
I hadn't talked to the boys because it would have been, I wouldn't have talked to them, they didn't have cell phones, they were little. So I only would have spoken to them if I had gone to the preschool and seen them, but I didn't do that. So
You may notice she's providing a lot of unnecessary information. She has reasons that she wants you to hear this, but she's providing all of these additional details about why she didn't talk to them, and it's unnecessary, and it also adds to making this look suspicious.
I hadn't talked to the boys. I'm sorry, what was the second part
How
of the question?
about Dan? Did you speak to him that morning?
We didn't. We had plans to talk. We had traded some text messages and emails, and then I called him and he didn't pick up, and that was the last contact.
Did you attempt to call Dan Markel when you encountered the roadblock?
No.
Did you attempt to call your kid's daycare after encountering the roadblock?
No.
You probably noticed she's not providing a long explanation for why she didn't do these things, even if she just gave a long explanation for why she didn't speak to her kids that morning. So it's really important to pay attention to where she wants to provide detail versus where she does not.
Okay. Did Mr. Markel leave you a message on the morning of his murder?
He did.
Okay, and did he indicate on that message?
You're getting the slow blinking again. That's always key when you want to focus on which questions are really getting to her.
Were you in any way involved in the plot to kill your ex-husband?
No.
Did you maybe know it was going to happen but not know the details?
I did not know it was going to happen, and I did not know any details.
I know I've pointed this out a couple of times already, but it's just so consistent. There goes the slow blinking. There goes the eye closing after she's asked questions like this. She does not always do this, but she does on the really important and significant questions and ones that may imply some degree of deception. Watch this again.
Were you in any way involved in the plot to kill your ex-husband?
No.
Did you maybe know it was going to happen but not know the details?
I did not know it was going to happen, and I did not know any details.
Why did you tell investigator Isom in your law enforcement interview that you were worried the police, or you were worried, I guess, in the police car on the way to be interviewed, that you might be considered a suspect?
Because I couldn't think of anything bad going on in his life other than the divorce. And frequently the ex-wife is a suspect.
Now, you notice her clenching her jaw right here? Watch this. There's a lot of tension under the surface as she's saying this.
And frequently the ex-wife is a suspect.
See the tension right there?
Were you treated as a suspect?
I was not.
But you mentioned 9 times in your law enforcement interview being a suspect, didn't you?
I did, yes.
So that you learned that information prior to getting into the interview room?
Yes.
Okay.
Now, this appears to be making Donna anxious. You saw her looking back and forth towards both of them. Now she's licking her lips, taking a heavier breath. This seems to be distressing. I think that Donna must know that there is something about this questioning, that she's onto something.
Okay. In that interview with law enforcement, did you suggest that your parents are people who may have been angry enough to kill Dan Markel?
There was that contempt again. Watch this.
Are people who may have been angry enough to kill Dan Markel?
I suggested a lot of people who could have been angry enough to kill Danny.
And were...
Now we're going to move on from Wendy's testimony and watch a little bit of her brother Robert Adelson's testimony. Now, I want you to keep in mind, this is not so much about body language, because I can go ahead and tell you now, he seems like he's being very straightforward, very credible. I can talk about why that is, but I thought it would be more interesting to analyze some of what he has to say about his mother, Donna Adelson.
How do you know the defendant in this case, Donna Adelson?
She's my mother.
And Harvey Adelson's your dad?
Yes.
Wendy and Charlie Adelson are your siblings?
Yes.
Okay. And where did you grow up?
In Coral Springs, Florida.
Is that a bit north of Miami?
Yep.
About how?
I wasn't sure whether or not I wanted to cover this because you can clearly see the discomfort and pain of going through this process. I really hate this for him, but I do think that he says some things about Donna Adelson that are extremely important, so I want to show that. But I also want to show how much authenticity you're getting right now. And I'm going to show a little bit about Donna after this because I want to compare and contrast what real emotion looks like versus something that looks more like a performance.
I think it was certainly between over-involved and controlling. It probably lended itself more toward controlling, but there's in various realms, more or less. But I think certainly that was a tension.
So there's nothing that Robert is saying that is shocking here. That Donna is controlling, that she is detail-oriented, that she tends to micromanage. These are all aspects that seem pretty clear from the way that everybody else has described her. But we're continuing to get what I would say are very authentic and appear to be very authentic responses here. Now, I'm skipping ahead for just a minute because right now I think they're taking a little bit of a break. They're talking about something, so everything's muted. But as you can see, Donna's body is actually facing the other way. During the previous testimony, when Wendy was talking, she was actually faced towards her, and right now she's facing away from Robert. So I think that speaks to how she's feeling right now.
All right, so how did you first hear about Dan Markel's murder?
I heard the day after the shooting occurred, so that would be Saturday, July 19. I was at a meeting in Chicago, and I think I got a phone call first, and that I was in a meeting, and so I just said can I call you later? And then I got a text message shortly thereafter, like right before 10 in the morning, that said like, tragedy here, please call.
And are these from Donna Adelson?
Yes.
Okay. So were you able to call her that morning from the conference in Chicago?
Yeah, so I walked out and went to the hotel lobby and just hit call.
Okay, and tell us about that conversation with her.
You hear the natural way that this story is unfolding. His narrative is giving the right amount of details. It's not avoiding details. It's not giving superfluous details. This is typically how, when someone is being open and straightforward, this is what we would expect them to answer like.
So it's one of those moments that you'll just remember forever. So I remember being in the lobby of the Westin, and I assumed something terrible had happened, and but I wasn't ready for it. She said, so we just want to let you know that Danny's been shot, and they took him to the hospital, but he didn't make it. And it didn't.
See how his eyes got big? When we really feel surprise, our mouth can open, our eyes get big. These are little micro expressions that you're seeing playing out with real emotion. So people always ask me, can you show me what somebody that's honest or showing real emotion looks like? That's what we're seeing right here.
Just want to let you know that Danny's been shot, and they took him to the hospital, but he didn't make it. And
see, the eyes go up, the eyebrows go up, his eyes are open wide. That's re-experiencing that feeling of shock. So when he talks about it's a moment he can't ever forget, that he'll always remember, that's what you mean, is that it's really encoded in the part of your brain that handles emotions. You're feeling it all over again, at least in just a little bit of, in a small way.
It didn't make any sense. And, I probably asked like a few medical questions, and they said they're driving up to go help Wendy, and, we'll talk to you later. We can't talk now.
Okay. Was she crying in that conversation?
Not
Donna
in the
Adelson?
conversation.
Sir?
No, she was not.
Okay.
It was very matter of fact.
Did she ever give you any further detail that weekend about how he'd been shot, or other than just Danny was shot and he didn't make it?
I think it was the next day. So the only really other time that I spoke with him that weekend, I was in the airport going home, like Sunday afternoon. So it was definitely the next day, and it was the first time I could actually have any kind of conversation. And one of the things that she told me is, it bothered me, but I didn't have any other details about. But she said that, someone went to the front door and said, "Are you Dan Markel?" and then shot him. And then I said, "Well, how could you know that? Who's telling you that?" And she said, "Well, that's just what they're telling us." And
Okay. So she said someone told her that.
What a bizarre detail for Donna to have provided for him. There was just no reason for that. It's fascinatingly strange that she told him that.
And then I said, "Well, how could you know that? Who's telling you that?" And she said, "Well, that's just what they're telling us." And
Okay. So she said someone told her that someone knocked on Danny's door, said, "Are you Dan Markel?" He said yes, and the shooter shot him.
That's the story I heard, and later we found out that wasn't what happened, but that story bothered me a lot because there's only one way you could hear that story. But, and she called me and said, I just want to let you know, if the police come around, don't talk to them.
Okay, so she told you not to talk to law enforcement.
Correct.
Did you let her know that you already had talked to law
Yeah, I
enforcement?
said I already did.
What'd she say to that?
She said, "Oh, well, you don't know anything anyway."
You don't know anything anyway?
Correct.
Was that an unusual statement coming from your mother?
Yeah, everything that week was unusual, but I clearly didn't know anything, but I wasn't going to not talk to the FBI if they show up at my house.
I cannot imagine how impossibly difficult it must be to be providing this testimony. But there's really not much to break down as far as the body language goes. He's clearly being very genuine, open, and honest. There's not much else to say. I could break down all these little micro expressions, but it almost doesn't feel worthwhile because what he's saying is so compelling. I do at least want to be very clear. There are zero signs of deception from him whatsoever.
How did you respond? Let me ask you this. After the murder of Dan Markel, did Donna Adelson seem curious about who killed Dan Markel?
No.
Was there a complete lack of curiosity?
Yeah, nobody seemed curious.
Did you actually ever ask her, after the murder, hey, what do you think happened?
Now we're going to watch Donna Adelson reacting to a forensic specialist talking about Dan Markel's murder.
Why was that of significance?
That is consistent with stippling.
What is stippling?
Stippling is being
Now I see her bunching up her face and rubbing her chest. I don't see any tears. This is somebody who is appearing to be in extreme distress, and yet there doesn't seem to be any real emotion moving forward as we see this. Let's watch a little bit of Donna as she's, I want to say crying, but that doesn't really accurately describe what she's doing.
close contact to a firearm that was discharged, and it's going to be the unburnt gunpowder and gas.
So this is something that we've seen from her before. A lot of shaking, she's covering her mouth, but we don't see a lot of what appears to be really authentic emotion here. Why is there so much distress hearing about this over a decade after it happened? There's other people in the courtroom that know and care about Dan Markel, and they don't seem to be reacting this way. So why is it that this is hitting Donna so hard? If we go back and look at Robert, for example, talking about this, there were times that clearly appeared to be very difficult and emotional for him. Those appear to be very authentic. This feels very much like a performance. There's multiple other times, although I didn't actually cover these on my channel, but I can if people want to see it, where she was shaking and crying without tears. This appears to be another one of those cases. To me, this maybe is some kind of performance for the jury. It just doesn't make any sense. This type of intensity makes no sense given the context of everything, even if she was not involved with this.
As being close contact to a firearm that was discharged, and it's going to be the unburnt gunpowder and gases that leave the barrel of a gun at a high velocity. And
see the shaking of the head, almost like, no, this can't be true. It just feels so performative.
Cross-examination. No questions, Your Honor.
Very well. Ms. Maltese, you may step down.
I don't mean to be unsympathetic, but the way that it's been described by many people is that she absolutely hated Dan Markel. So the idea that she can't listen to a forensics expert talk about this without absolutely breaking down, it does seem a little bit ludicrous. All right, let's go ahead and wrap things up. Hopefully this is helping you better understand some of the behavior and body language that we saw today. We saw 3 family members with 3 very different body language styles. Donna, someone who appears very cold and somewhat emotionless at times, swings back and forth between that and being extremely emotional, but no tears. The facial expressions don't quite look right. She does it in a way that seems very performative and doesn't really make sense in context, actually. So when we see Donna doing this, it's hard to feel empathic or sympathy because there are things about the body language that don't seem right. When we watched Robert Adelson talk, it was very compelling. I felt really bad for him because it seemed to be there was some genuine emotion there, which of course there would be for anybody who has to say the kinds of things that he did in front of a jury. And I think the jury is going to find his testimony very, very compelling and very credible. And that leaves Wendy. She didn't do herself any favors today. There were things that she said that truly made her credibility questionable. And for those of us that have watched, much like I showed at the beginning of this, watched the police interview, we know she said something that was absolutely untrue. If you have any other thoughts about this, or if there's anything else you want me to analyze, please let me know in the comments below. Last thing before we get finished up is I do want to remind you to like and subscribe if you want to see more content just like this. All right, thanks for watching.